So research shouldn't just be a game of numbers or you're just collecting data and roaming around in forest, just observing animals and collecting something and bringing out some report. Everything, whatever we do today, is uh, all has to be compiled together and has to actually help in on ground conservation of the species. India, we have four swiftlets, which is Himalayan swiftlet, which is found in Himalayas. We have Indian swiftlet in Western Ghats and Sri Lanka. And then we have two swiftlets, which is plume-toed swiftlet and edible nest swiftlet in Andaman and Nicobar Island.
So they're
Never.
constantly flying.
14 hours of
They must.
flight each day.
Acha.
Yeah.
And they're so small. I think weighing
They're
what,
very
20
small.
grams each?
Yeah, just 10 centimeters.
So they are monomorphic and also
Yes.
monogamous. They mate for life.
That is how this bird is like super amazing.
Welcome to Bifocal Naturalist. Our guest today is Dhanusha Kawalkar. Dhanusha is a researcher and a speleologist, and her fondness for exploration and conservation has led her into the caves exploring the edible nest swiftlets. She worked in both Andamans and in Vengurla, Maharashtra. And because of her, we have learned a lot about these unique birds and their habitats. Welcome, Dhanusha. How are you?
I'm good, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure always to be on your show, have a chat with you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I've been looking forward to it, a couple of years because I met you at Vengurla for the conference and I was very, very impressed with your work. So, Dhanusha, why edible nest swiftlets?
Yeah, so thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for first of all that you always praise my work, and it always feels really great that people like you actually praising my work. So coming to Swiftlets, I was actually introduced to them back in 2017 when I joined Salim Ali Center for Ornithology and Natural History, Coimbatore, in one of their projects on edible nest swiftlet conservation. So this project was back then led by Dr. Manchi Shirish. He's a principal scientist at SACON. And it's a amazing. I mean, it's a surprising way that I met him while I was doing my MSc, and then he gave me a chance. I would say he believed my potential and then introduced me to this beautiful world of caves and these cave dwelling birds.
I think he
So
recognized your potential. I would rather say he recognized your potential.
yeah, I'll be always, thankful to him for this opportunity. So, Swiftlets, I was never introduced to them before my master's. And it was during his presentation that he told us about that this bird is an endemic bird, is only found in Andaman Nicobar Islands, which is the Andaman edible nest swiftlet. Otherwise, the edible nest swiftlet is found throughout Southeast Asia. And in India, we have four swiftlets, which is Himalayan swiftlet, which is found in Himalayas. We have Indian swiftlet in Western Ghats and Sri Lanka. And then we have two swiftlets, which is plume-toed swiftlet and edible nest swiftlet in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So SACON is still involved and was involved in conservation of these birds in Andaman and Nicobar Islands since 1995. Nest of this bird is actually edible. Edible as in people actually make soup out of its nest, and it's sold like in a huge amount. Like around one bowl of soup can cost us around 500 to 1,000 rupees.
Mm.
And if we say so if we say the global market for this nest is like millions of dollars, and around 1 kg of the nest actually costs around somewhere around $2,000 to $2,500, which comes around like 1.5 lakhs, 2 lakhs. So back then in Anandaman, in the late 90s, Dr. Ravi Shankar, who actually started this pioneer project of swiftlet conservation, saw that there was a lot of illegal trading going on. and people from Burma used to come and harvest this with the help of locals there. And this is how we identified what the issue was there, and then converted the poachers into protectors. And that is how the journey of swiftlet conservation started. And I always feel very lucky to be part of this beautiful project and part of his legacy as well. Also, one thing about swiftlets, which amazes me till date, is that they cannot land on ground. So the swiftlets belong to a family called Apodidae. So Apodidae comes from a Greek word called as apos. Apos means footless, but it's not literally that the bird is footless. It actually means that the bird has weak legs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it doesn't have the thrust to if it's on the ground, it doesn't have a thrust to lift itself and take a flight. So I mean, the most amazing part is it has to cling on the wall, and it has very sharp like claws. So it clings to the wall surface entire night, and it's on the wing for like 14 hours a day.
So they're
Never.
constantly flying. I mean, they don't stop
Yes.
anywhere. They just
14 hours of
yes.
flight each day.
Acha.
Yeah.
And they're so small. I think weighing
They're
what,
very
10
small.
grams each?
Yeah. Just 10 centimeters.
10 centimeters. And also they spit their saliva and
Yes.
make the
Around
nest
10 grams.
10
Yes,
grams.
yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So there is no difference between a male and female swift.
No, they are monogamous birds. I mean, believed to be monogamous.
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot differentiate between a male and female unless and until we do a couple of blood tests and all
So what do
those
you call
genetic
when the male and the
analysis.
female look alike? What is the scientific term?
That is monomorphic.
Monomorphic. So they are
Yeah.
monomorphic and also
Yes.
monogamous. They mate for life.
Monogamous. Made for life.
Mate for life.
So that is how this bird is like super amazing.
But I think, SACON and you researchers really helped when there was a lot of floods and cyclone in the south, and many people found the birds in their balconies and they didn't know what to do. So I think you all
Yes, ma'am.
helped them to, set them free or let them fly again, right?
Yes, ma'am. So back then, if you would remember, the Maharashtra's coast was hit by Nisarga and Tokte cyclone, which was amongst the, I mean, a deadliest cyclone which West Coast ever faced. And the origin of the cyclone was actually near the Vengurla Rocks, and it came like from Vengurla Rocks towards Raigad and hitting Mumbai. So during that time, people from Mumbai, and there were local organizations which were helping out for rescue of birds, actually told us that they found a lot of swifts and swallows fallen on their balconies, like around like 30th and 40th floor.
Uh-huh.
And it was very difficult for them to understand what exactly happened to the bird, because the bird was actually looking very fit and healthy, except the bird had some dehydration, which the people actually helped them with. So they gave them water, a little bit of glucose. Everything was there, but the bird was still not taking its flight. So when I randomly was going through Facebook posts, and I believe, yeah, I think Aditya from a local organization in Mumbai, who told us that this was the case, and then we told him that we actually have to have them in the hand and give them that thrust. Otherwise, these apodids will not fly. So I believe it's very important for people or community, and obviously birders like us, who and also people who love birds, to understand what different types of birds exist around us, and if they are found in distress, what exactly should be done. So I believe that was just a little bit of contribution that we could give during that time, and I believe it helped them save a lot of birds.
No, no, that's really wonderful, to be able to contribute to these little creatures. Dhanusha, I would like to know, did you face any personal challenges as a student and researcher?
So I am student and researcher comes later. First, it starts from my home itself. So during that time when I was like wondering that I should do a career and make a career something out of box, and I should be faced by some challenges, and it shouldn't be like a stereotypic career basically. So that time my father was actually against me getting into wildlife ecology, and that is not just because of a lack of understanding of how this field actually works, but there was something which actually scared him from inside, as in my daughter is going to go in forest. Will she be alone, or if there is wildlife, who is going to protect her? And there were a lot of crazy questions in his head. But then slowly and steadily, when I started proving myself and showing him that, yeah, I am capable of protecting myself and I don't need anybody. And it's just that I have the potential and I can figure out things on field. So he started believing in my intentions, and then this is how I actually landed up in this field. Coming as a student, because I have a social work background, it's very difficult for people, especially your subordinates, to accept you in that form during the initial stage. Because I had a background of social sciences, social work basically, so it was initially difficult to cope up pure sciences or ecology or concepts. So I would believe I always had to go an extra mile. I mean, if others were studying for 2 hours, I had to study for 8 hours to bring to the come myself to that pace, and maybe, yeah, to in the end is proving ourselves that we deserve to be a researcher in ecology or wildlife sciences. And then as a researcher, because I mean I was a little healthily plumbed up, and caves have narrow passages. So initially I was also body shamed that maybe I won't be able to enter caves, I will not be able to collect data. But then yeah, I could do everything, because caving is all about technique, it's not about your body size. And plus collecting data is also was definitely a challenge, and as a woman you obviously have uh, various different challenges, but I was very lucky to be supported by all males in the field. So I have always had supporting as field assistants, my supporting mentors, like collaborators, everybody. So yeah, I would say it was challenging, but then I made it.
Ah,
And
that's
yeah,
good. That's the
so
end thing,
yeah,
finally.
I will never say that it was very difficult or anything. Yeah, I mean, striving in any field is difficult, definitely difficult. But then, in the end, what matters is you survived. You survived everything, and yeah. So yeah, making proud of.
That's wonderful.
Like, I'm proud of myself right now.
Yes, very. I'm proud of you too. Dhanusha, you
Thank
were
you.
talking about caves. So could you tell us something about the sea caves, how challenging they are, to study? And what are the habitats there, any micro habitats? Could you tell us more about sea caves?
So initially, when I was in Andaman, that's when the craze of coastal caves, got onto my head. Because I with my mentor, we were surveying Interview Island, and he took me to a west coast of that island where we found around 7 to 8 caves. And while reading, I got to know a lot about them. It's especially about the process as they are formed. I mean, it's very difficult to imagine that it took millions of years for the sea waves to carve out a rock on a seashore, making it like a tunnel, and like properly carving it into a beautiful tunnel, and yeah, making it a cave. So I was amazed to understand that these caves have different areas, then perimeters, and it can be classified mathematically. And that's when is the actual curiosity for studying coastal caves and sea caves began, because they are very different as compared to the inland caves.
Dhanusha, what do you mean mathematically?
So when it comes to caves, or yeah, especially caves, because they are a closed habitat, their morphology becomes very like essential to be studied. So when it comes to morphology, the first thing is we map the caves. After mapping the caves, we get a lot of measurements like cave length or cave volume, cave area, wall area. And all these measurements help us in converting them into indices. Indices as in all our mathematical indices, such as cave area divided by cave perimeter. So each and every cave has a unique identity, a mathematical identity, I will say. So that is completely new space for me being an ecologist. It was a very new space of as in how do we actually look at these habitats as a mathematical quantity. So yeah, so that's how it happened. And if we come to the coastal caves ecosystem, it's very dynamic because you will see different fauna in low tide and different fauna in high tide. Because once high tide is there, water just comes guzzling inside the cave and leaves the cave and obviously washing off the floor. And then during low tide, you get to see all the organisms like crabs, even spiders. Then you get to see bats, a lot of other species. So yeah, it's a completely different ecosystem in Andaman. And when it comes to Vengurla, I mean, what should I say? It's amongst the most beautiful sea cave I have ever seen in my life. It was a basalt cave, unlike of Andaman, which is limestone. And here, the beautiful cave is carved out again through the wave action. I think it would have taken millions and millions of years to carve out that section. It's around 61 meters in length and 18 meters in height.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that cave is known for having the biggest population of Indian Swiftlet in the world. So that's what makes the cave, the sea cave of Vengurla, very special. And plus, we always define caves by bats, and it's the bats which actually bring in energy because caves they don't have light. I mean, the light source is very less, so there are no primary producers inside caves. So then, who actually runs the show? So either it's bats or either it's swiftlets. So swiftlets, when they are inside and their guano means their fecal matter actually which falls on ground and that actually brings life into the ecosystem. So there are many invertebrates. So in Vengurla, we actually found around 20 to 23 orders of insects which actually are surviving on the guano. And plus, swiftlet also are prey to many animals. So once the swiftlet dies or the chick dies, it falls on the ground. So a lot of beetles, bugs also feed. So this is how my mentor always quotes that like tiger is an umbrella species for forest. So swiftlet is a umbrella species for the cave ecosystem. So it's the same thing. I mean, the bird is responsible for survival of many
Yeah,
organisms.
so that's very interesting. But you're talking about mentors. How did your mentors train you, to be in the cave, to face this because it's so dark within the cave? And how do you get into it? I was in Vengurla a couple of times, and it's not easy because the water is gushing and it's so rocky. How do you get in from the boat into the cave, and how do you stay in the cave for a couple of days?
So
Your
I mean,
mentors, acclimatize you or rather train you, mentally and physically.
actually, if I'll say the first time when I went to Vengurla's sea cave, it was in December 2020, and I due to COVID for a very long time. And before that, only my mentor, Dr. Shirish, could go and see. So he always told me that I will not directly take you there. I'll first go check everything, set everything for you, and then I'll take you to the cave. And I always was skeptical about it, that what exactly he's going to check and what exactly he's going to plan. So yeah, so that's the thing which the mentors do is planning, and which oftentimes we young researchers back then when I was really young, so we lack is the planning and the vision. So when he went, he must have seen the habitat, how difficult it is, and and as I was the only researcher in the project, just a female researcher, and was supposed to stay in the islands and work for hours. So I'm sure that he must have found some way that he was going to acclimatize me mentally, physically, both for the island and prepare me. So there was a time, the first day when we went there, and I had no idea because during that time Vengurla Rocks was not that famous. So I didn't get to see any videos on YouTube or get to read much about it except the scientific papers. And in scientific papers, there was just a plain language. Okay, so there are 5,000 swiftlets in this cave, and I mean, just the basic scientific things. Nobody had written, nor even Abdul Ali or any other researcher had written that how difficult it was to land on the island itself. Studying is I mean, it's a long story, but how to first land it. So okay, so the sea was really rough when we first went there, and the waves were gustling, and it was really difficult. I wasn't prepared. I mean, I at that time I didn't even had a thought of what footwear I should be wearing. So I was just wearing the footwear I used to wear in Andaman, considering that okay, these islands, like, I mean, I have struggled and survived there in Andaman, so this island shouldn't be difficult for me. But then it was, I mean, the boat was like, we were like dancing
Roller
only. I
coaster,
mean,
a roller
on the
coaster
boat,
ride.
yeah, it was a roller coaster ride. And I initially didn't understand how is the boatman actually going to park the boat in front of the cave. So sir said to me that no, it's not going to park. It's just going to be roller coaster, and then you just need to jump on the island and see save yourself. So okay, I was like fine. As a kiddo, I was always been like khatro ki khiladi, and ha chalo, let's do something adventurous. And earlier parents used to be like not to do, not to do, but then you have got a guide who will always say jump. So I found myself lucky during that time, and I just jumped. So initially, it's just like a fraction of second, around 4 to 5 seconds, where is a chance of life and death, because the boats keep moving, and it's just like you have to have one leg in a boat and other leg on the island and just jump on the island. There is no other way. So this was a very, I mean, Bhagwan Bachai experience. Like okay, so finally I have landed on the island. And that evening, then the other task which he gave me was to count the birds. And again, it was like we had landed in the morning.
So did
So
you land
birds,
with both your shoes on, both your
yeah,
footwear?
I mean, it was a struggle. One footwear I left in the boat, and other was on the island. It was, I mean, I had a few scratches on my legs, and hands were bleeding. It was all juggling.
Hmm.
And Dr. Shireesh and Dr. Golden, I mean, three of us were there
Oh,
during the
Golden was
first
also there.
day. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was super fun. And because of, I mean, I would say because your mentors are very good to go with you, and you share that bond. Like even if you fall in the sea, somebody's there to save you. I mean, we are a team. It's you got to have a team and a team spirit when you go to such kind of islands or places where you know that you're going to have a challenging time. So coming to, I mean, when we landed, so the swiftlets are basically diurnal foragers. During the day, they forage, and it's only during the evening that they come back to the cave for roosting. So what happened that we entered, and initially in Andaman, I just had an experience of counting white nest. And counting white nests are, it's like comparatively easy because you just put a torch and it's just easy to count. Okay, fine, it was fine. I mean, but I had never seen in my life a colony of like 2,000, 2,500 nests in the cave, and densely packed, and making it more difficult to count. And plus, because Indian Swiftlets produces black nest, as in it mixes its own feathers with the saliva and then prepares the net. It's really, I mean, it just camouflages with the wall color. So I knew that this journey was not going to be a cakewalk. Definitely not going to be a cake for me. And then yeah, so that is how it began. And slowly and steadily, we also found out that counting these birds are also going to be a very uh, difficult task. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
so
and
this is how
you also told me that your supervisor made you sit for 2 hours in complete darkness in the
complete
cave
darkness. Yeah.
to get you
So that
acclimatized.
that happened that happened in Andaman when we were very new, and we didn't knew even see of the cave. So that's how, and we just had a Casio watch with us, and he just said to us, like his boss did to him, he did the same to us, saying that you have to sit here in complete darkness, and I'm going to take all your torches, and you just have to sit there, and you just have the light of your watch, and yeah, you have to sit for 2 hours and count swiftlets for me. So, I mean, we as a very young people, just 22, and okay, darkness is not fun sitting in a tropical evergreen forest. And even if I knew that there were no tigers and leopards, though I had studied tigers during my MSc, but that was in Nagpur. So, Nagpur landscape was completely different than Andaman.
Yes.
But I knew that there are no tigers, but there are vipers. So, there was something
Oh my God.
equivalent. Yeah, so vipers I believe are more scary than tigers, I'll say. So we were just sitting, and if even if something was crawling on my feet, it used to be like really scary. And sitting there without torches was, I mean, totally different experience. But then we saw somebody coming from a distant thing having torch, and luckily we like prayed, okay, that was Dr. Shirish who's coming to help us,
That's nice.
and then asked us what was your experience. So we were like, okay, we just heard lots of sounds, and out of which the bird sound, I mean the echo clicks, which is when it enters the cave, it has to I mean emit echo clicks
How does
to
it emit?
navigate it.
Can you imitate the sound?
Yeah, so it's like it's tick tick, so it's continuously does. So this is the speed of the echo clicks. So you have to sit there with a diary and pen, and uh, like individual by individual, you have to count the birds
Acha.
in the darkness, because the birds are so sensitive to light that if you are sitting at the cave entrance with a torch light on, the swiftlet would actually deter and it will not enter the cave.
Okay. And how did
So
you conduct awareness programs, to turn the poachers into protectors?
By the time I joined the project, the poachers were actually, it was almost 25 years that the project was running successfully with the protectors. So it was Dr. Shirish and Dr. Ravi who actually played the most critical role of converting them. But we actually worked with them, and they were our assistants, field assistants during the survey. And for a while, when I used to think that, okay, so this was the guy who is assisting me right now. Back then, 10 years back, he was a poacher. But this project has actually converted their mindsets so beautifully that if you see now and if you see 20 years back, so I mean, yeah, so these poachers which were already converted into protectors were and are now actually actively contributing in the swiftlet conservation. So it's been 20 to 25 years that these guys are collecting breeding data, ecological data, everything.
Acha.
So sometimes it just becomes difficult. But then I always had this feeling that I want to be I want to be part of such kind of a project which had a long run and which also contributed to the societal changes, or changes in mindset, and actually uh, becoming a community led conservation. So yeah, so edible nest swiftlet conservation
Yes,
project is one of those
correct.
beautiful amazing projects.
No, that's a nice word, community-led conservation. Unless the
Yeah.
community is involved, one can do nothing. We can have some laws and rules, but they will not be followed.
Also, very soon, Indian Swiftlets will be declared as the district bird of Sindhudurg. So
Okay.
that is also because of our conservation efforts for
Uh-huh.
last 4 years
Acha.
that we'll be doing it. So even the people, the awareness amongst the community will also increase.
Acha. Yes, when you
And
declare,
Yeah,
like when you
Vengurla
declare
Rocks
the
will
state
just not
mangrove,
be
it helped.
Huh. Yes, ma'am.
Always stayed
Yes.
bird, these things help. At least one particular
Exactly.
species is taken care of. I don't know about the rest, but at least something is
Right.
saved. Yeah.
No, but Vengurla is going to be a champion district because then Indian Swiftlets is only found right now in entire Maharashtra. It's only found in uh,
Vengurla.
like Vengurla Rocks is the breeding colony, and we have a few foraging locations in Kudar and Malvad.
Dhanusha, can you, give us, some message for the researchers, future researchers and my viewers?
So, in this field, I have not, explored so much, but because it's just been half a decade. But as a researcher, 7 years is a very long time. Because when we are on field, I always feel that the time slows down. You will never understand what day it is, what time it was, what time did you eat, or what time did you sleep. It just turns your life upside down. So, so there's one thing which our lab or Dr. Shirish, who has taught me very strictly, is the research should always lead to conservation. So research shouldn't just be game of numbers or you're just collecting data and roaming around in forest, just observing animals and collecting something and bringing out some report. It's always been fed in our minds that everything whatever we do today is uh, all has to be compiled together and has to actually help in on ground conservation of the species. So nowadays when we look at the data, we just say, okay, so we are just going to collect data and publish some papers. So conservation does not stop in publishing a couple of reports or a couple of scientific papers. It has more in-depth meaning. Secondly, I always say that passion, perseverance, and commitment is what it actually takes to survive in any difficult terrain, or to be committed to your passion. And yeah, so that is how it works. If you are not passionate enough and you are not committed to the cause, you can hardly do anything for yourself or society or for the environment as a whole. And thirdly, is my personal philosophy, is having a sense of responsibility and sense of belonging to that habitat. So uh, so for the first time when I entered cave, it was back then in 2017 when uh, Dr. Series actually introduced me to these habitats. It was like when I entered the cave, I never had that feeling of sense of responsibility or belonging in any other habitat, be it wetland or whether be it forest. When I stood inside a cave, it gave me that here, yeah, okay, so this is where I belong, and then I have to carry the weight and have to be contributing very actively in the conservation of the caves and the species which are living inside it. So I think these are some mantras which today's researchers, if they follow, it would be real great, and that would actually create meaning, and which actually also led them to do some lead them to know them to some meaningful work. So it's like there has to be some purpose and meaning to whatever we are doing today, and obviously it should also affect the tomorrow.
Yes,
So yeah, so
yeah, that's
that's it.
wonderful, Dhanusha. I think, thank you very much. I think Dhanusha, through resilience and perseverance, and with great passion, she has very creatively crafted a career. She moved from social work to wildlife ecology, and now she's a speleologist. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again, and I think you will get your doctorate very, very soon. You've submitted your thesis,
Yeah,
Dhanusha. Yes,
recently.
all the
Thank
best.
you so much, ma'am. Thank you
And
so
God
much
bless
for
you.
having me.
God bless you. Take care.
Thank you, ma'am.